Hello everyone, my name is Maria Martinez and today I will be giving brief details of my final project. And this course is Criminal Procedure and Evidence with Professor Nisson over at Florida Southwestern State College. Okay, so the purpose of evidence is that it is to provide and present information which then enables the judge, and the jury to decide a particular case. Testimony or physical items, information presented in court which enables a judge. Okay, I already said that. In addition, the purposes of rules of evidence is to know what is admissible at a trial, ensure integrity of all evidence, and protect a defendant's right and ensure a fair trial. The general process and handling of all evidence from the time of discovery through deposition. The officer must secure the area upon arrival. That means that the officer should get large crowds, if any, out of the area to avoid tampering and destruction of evidence and determine who to interview as well. Remember that those who are being interviewed, which are the witnesses, their testimony can be used as evidence. Each and any type of evidence must be collected, marked, tagged, packaged, transported, stored properly so that it can be later admitted into evidence as according to the textbook Criminal Procedure and Evidence by Garland, page 416. At this time, during the collection, blood samples should be collected, plotting of bullet paths should be determined, notation of gunpowder patterns, examination of wound patterns, and gathering of materials upon which trace evidence which may have been deposited, such as a gun left behind inside. It could have been dumped in the bushes or a dumpster or something. Intact object, pieces of an object, blood, glass, liquids, or gases as well should be collected, marked, tagged, and packaged. And this is another piece of that. A way to make sure that the evidence has not been tampered or altered with in any ways by keeping the evidence in the officer's personal possession from the moment it has been picked up from the crime scene to the moment the officer produces it in court. However, this can be a little bit difficult because sometimes it's impossible for the officer to maintain exclusive control over evidence for a number of reasons. I mean, there can be insufficient storage available for the evidence. It has to be passed on to other labs, and they have to investigate it and everything. There are circumstances where the officer cannot have exclusive control over these. As mentioned, there are evidence such as a collection of blood to be handed over to criminalists, who then extract the blood stain collected at the crime scene and thus require a number of days to be in possession of the stain before sending off samples to a secondary crime lab for comparisons. And when this happens, the officer loses complete custody and control of the object. The officer must maintain a record of chain of custody. On the side right here, I put an example of what a chain of custody record looks like, who it's received from, by who, the date, the time, AM or PM, and it goes on so forth. With every person has to write their information on there who had the object itself. And there is usually a log attached to the object, and every person who handles the item, like I said, must record his or her name, their department, the date of the handling to ensure that the chain of custody is kept intact. The names and description of evidence. There are 4 general categories of types of evidence. Testimony of witness, as the one that I mentioned earlier. 3 characteristics are the ability to perceive, capability of remembering, and narrating in an understanding manner. Those are the 3 characteristics that a witness must have to be able to testify. Real or physical evidence is another category of the type of evidence. The material object that was found in the crime scene that is brought for evidence in a court, such as a gun, a knife, bloodstains, or latent fingerprint. There are also documents or writings, evidence such as writings, recordings, and letters. And there are two classifications of documents, public and private. Public evidence is they can be categorized as laws, judicial records, other official documents, for instance, driver's license, marriage applications, and birth certificates. And public records or public writings such as records of deeds and mortgages. On the other hand, private documents are those such as letters, memoranda, answering machine messages, email messages, text messages, suicide notes, and wills. On the bottom there, I have a sample of the Florida driver's license, which pretty much most of you guys know and are familiar with, those of you from Florida. On the bottom, next to it, I have an example of a will, and on the very top, I have a, that is another type of evidence, which is demonstrative evidence, and that is used merely to illustrate the witness's testimony. Demonstrative evidence are those such as a copy, a model, an imitation, or reproduction. That's according to Garland on page 412. The guy there, he has a picture or a model of what the gun looked like that was used during a crime scene. Physical evidence. And physical evidence can be broken down into four categories: the fruit of crime, instrumentality of a crime, contraband, and evidence of a crime. The fruit of crime is defined as property that is seizable by police officers, such as stolen or embezzled property. For example, in the picture right there, it's kind of covered because of the recording, but down there, there's guns and phones and some other weapons. Those are stolen. They're stolen property, and I'm guessing the person was selling them, or, and an officer can seize that, because they're stolen properties, stolen items. And instrumentality of a crime is defined as a property that is also seizable by a police officer that was used as a means of committing a crime. Contraband is defined as any item that is illicit for a person to possess, for instance, an illegal sawed-off shotgun or illicit drugs. I have a demonstration down there. It's a picture with illegal drugs, an amount of bulk money, and a weapon. Now, evidence of a crime is any object that demonstrates that a crime has been committed. On the very top, I have a picture of a gun, which could have been used during a crime. So that's that. Admissibility of evidence. Not every evidence can be used in trial because there are certain conditions used to describe or qualify evidence that should be clearly understood. These terms relate to the admissibility of evidence, and in order for evidence to be considered admissible in court, it must be related and relevant to the case, must be on balance, which is more pertinent than unfairly prejudicial or otherwise competent or admissible. Even if the evidence is pertinent to the case, it can be excluded if unduly prejudicial, confuses the matters, misleads the jury, and or is a waste of the court's time. If its prejudicial value substantially outweighs its probative value, it can also be excluded. And here I have the legal procedures for securing admissions and confessions. The admission is defined as any statement, verbal or otherwise, made by a party that can be used in evidence against him or her, as long as it is pertinent to the case. And the confession, on the other hand, is a conscious acknowledgement of guilt by an accused. They both are kind of alike in a way, but admissions do concern only some specific fact, which in turn tends to establish guilt or some form of the offense, whereas confessions, the admission of a crime, is an admission of the crime itself. Important fact: both admissions and confessions must be made voluntarily to be used in a court. Okay, doesn't let me go back, but it also can be excluded, because if the statements can be excluded, both admissions and confessions, if Miranda rights or their Sixth Amendment is not waived to the defendant. For instance, if you didn't read, if an officer does not waive their rights to the defendant, and the defendant says something that can be used against them, I mean, they can't use it because their rights were not read. So pretty much that's all I have right now. The references I used the textbook that we used during this course. It's by Norman Garland, 2015 edition, Criminal Evidence. That's what the book is called. And the picture, a certain picture I used off this website, and the rest were just like little cartoons, so I don't think that really matters. Well, thank you.